Santa only come once a year.
Hey, Peter. God dang it, Bobby.
Welcome back to 191 Media. I'm Micah.
And I'm Matt, and today we're going to review the movie Klaus, which released in 2019.
The movie was directed by Sergio Pablos, and it stars Jason Schwartzman, J.K. Simmons, and Rashida Jones.
The plot summary for this movie is that the spoiled son of a postal service owner is sent to the feuding town of Smearensburg, and he's sent there as punishment for being lazy. Here, he must set up a post office in order to be allowed home. However, he meets the character Klaus, who was a knack for making toys and bringing children cheer. Now that we both watched this wholesome family movie, what were your initial thoughts and comments on the movie, and kind of what you thought about the story too?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be more of a kids movie when I started it. I know you recommended the movie and I was like, oh crap, this Klaus movie, I hope it's not too much of a kids movie, but it really kind of towards the end of the movie started to feel more of like an adult style movie. Like it was made for kids, but you can tell that they wanted to kind of please the adults that would watch this movie too with their kids. So it kind of have a good mix of both elements to that movie. So yeah, I really liked kind of the premise of the movie. It reminded me a lot of, I guess you had mentioned it before, but The Emperor's New Groove, just kind of that art style to it. But yeah, I thought it was interesting. The main character Jesper, he's kind of a, you know-it-all brat. He's been like kind of raised in this rich home his whole life. He's kind of known like silk sheets and I guess pretty much people just to wait to his every need. So his father is kind of telling him, like he's trying to get into the postal service, and his father's telling him he's not really kind of, I guess, adapting to where he should be, and he's just a really lazy guy. So he sends him to this really remote island called Smearensburg. And it almost reminds me of like a town that's never been kind of formalized to like the civilized world. So I thought it was interesting that they had these two feuding families, and they ended up fighting each other all the time. And it was interesting because you have to like ring a bell to kind of realize, okay, like this is how they start fighting. But then you kind of realize down the line, it's been years, centuries that these two families have been fighting each other. So it's a very kind of grim island to be on. And he is actually like very depressed, just kind of going through the motion, and his father ends up telling him he needs a certain amount of letters to be able to come back home. So that's kind of his fuel to, I guess, get off this island. But yeah, it kind of introduces some really cool characters, and I was very surprised by this movie. Kind of, what did you think of it too?
I did agree with everything you said. The town of Smearensburg, it was, the two families, the Ellingbos and the Crumbs.
Where is his crumb?
Ellingbos and the Crumbs. And essentially, like Micah said, for centuries they've been fighting each other, trying to kill each other, and they just hate each other in general, and the town's just, you're either one or the other. And then Jesper shows up and has to set up the post office, and he himself was, like Micah said, the reason he went there, he was cut off from all the money from his family, so he basically had nothing, and he was just so distraught at the beginning. But the only thing that motivated him was this post office business where he had to send 6,000 letters to be able to come home. And the movie was a surprise. I guess this was Netflix's answer to kind of Pixar and Disney animation and their go at trying to get something out there for kids, because Netflix doesn't really do too many animated movies, I'd say. And this movie was actually done super well. It actually came up for, I think, I'm not sure, I think it was Best Picture for 2019, so it actually went up for a decent award there, and I'd say it's well deserved. I did like the story. The characters were well written. I'd say it's kind of weird because it was done really well from a character perspective, but at the same time, I don't think they really named any of the townspeople, or I don't think they named anybody except Klaus, who was, of course, portraying Santa Claus, or is Santa Claus, Alva, which is kind of the school teacher character, and then Jesper, which is the main character. Other than those three, I don't think they even named his dad. Like, what did you think about this?
His name was Dad. Like, yeah, I mean, they didn't really have to, I guess. They had that one little kid. I don't even think they named her, but...
The one who spoke like Norwegian?
Yeah. But anyway, like, the only thing that I kind of had a little bit of a problem with this movie was like how annoying Jesper was in the beginning. Like he was just whining like the whole time. But I guess that makes sense for his character. He's like a spoiled brat growing up. But they really matured his character, and you know, like I guess one of the main kind of plot points for the movie is, you kind of see, it's almost like the retelling of Santa Claus's origin story, I guess. So there were so many points where you just have to smile, and there were so many sad parts too, the thing they did well was kind of show a backstory for Klaus as well, and you really kind of feel bad for his character. He almost seems like he's more of a brooding style character in the beginning, and then Jesper kind of takes him out of his comfort zone, and he becomes more of a guy that's like, more of a friend with Jesper, and like he starts laughing and stuff, and it was a very wholesome movie. So I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I did like how they retold the origin story of Santa, where I guess there was some kind of magic involved, but it wasn't really directly there. It was more like, okay, this is kind of what happened in real life according to this movie, and then this is how it kind of sensationalized by the kids who they only saw what was happening on the side, but in reality it's like there's a scene where the sleigh goes off the mountain side and they go flying, but the kids see and go, oh my god, the reindeers are flying, but in reality it's like, yeah, they're actually going to get hurt and they're just falling off a cliff. So I thought the origin story was done really well, and this movie was, even though it was for kids, it almost seemed like the first maybe 30 minutes for a young kid might be kind of scary, just with the portrayal of the town, and it's almost like the town's people, like we said, are trying to kill each other, so there's some pretty dark and grim scenes, even though there's no real violence shown, but there's some pretty scary parts to it for a young kid, I'd say.
Yeah, and all the townspeople are like super ugly too, and
yeah,
they just portray them to look like they've never seen like a normal civilization before. They're very cut off from, I guess, the real world. So yeah, they did a really good job in that respect. Another thing that was interesting about this movie was the art style. Matt, can you just tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, the art style was amazing for this movie, and it was done super well. I don't know if any other movies have looked like this, so if you're just watching this movie, you'd almost think it was done almost like a 3D Pixar, maybe DreamWorks kind of film, but it was actually fully hand-drawn traditional 2D animation. The reason it looked like it was almost 3D is because they did 2D hand-drawn, but then they used computers to put 3D shading techniques on it, so it turned it to look 3D, but it was actually totally two-dimensional. I think they did use a couple CGI models for like some of the action scenes where things were flying around, like the sleigh, but other than that, totally 2D, and I really thought they pulled it off, and it was almost a cute art style that was perfect for what it was trying to portray. Did you like the art style of this movie?
Yeah, it's not really anything I had kind of seen before, just in terms of what you were saying with like most of those Pixar style movies are 3D, so it's interesting that they had done that. They really pull it off very well. I agree with like everything you said there. So even though this movie was directed at kids, Matt, do you still think it had that aspect of things that adults could enjoy too? Did you enjoy it?
I did like it a lot, and I think it's great for the whole family. In my opinion, I think what makes a movie, one of these animated movies like this, good is when it is directed at kids, but at the same time, an adult can watch it and enjoy it as well. So I think it pulled it off really well in that regard, and I think whether you're, 2 years old or you're 80 years old, I think you would find this movie enjoyable.
I just was imagining an 80-year-old watching this movie. Oh, it's so good.
How about yourself, Micah? Did you think this was enjoyable as an adult as well?
Yeah, if I was a kid watching this movie, I think it would be really good. But as an adult, as a 25-year-old, I thought it was really well done. I enjoyed it. They had all the good plot points for a movie that they integrated. Like, it was only an hour and 40 minutes, I believe. So yeah, they had all the good character points. Like, the plot kept going, characters were well written, which is obviously the most important part of a movie. If you don't have characters that we like, it kind of showed Jesper as like this spoiled brat growing up, and then, starting up in the movie, and then towards the end, he becomes one of my favorite characters because you can tell he really changes his tone in the way he acts. So yeah, I think the other thing too is it kind of almost shows kids, and it's like the power of Christmas, right? It's like a wholesome movie. And in the movie, they kind of talk about one act of kindness will like spark another. So yeah, it was just very wholesome, really good movie. I could kind of see this movie maybe potentially being a staple for a Christmas movie in the future. Maybe even up there with like The Grinch or, you know, movies like that.
I'd agree with that. I'd say it should be a Christmas staple, and I think more people need to see this movie. And although, you know, classics become classics because they're maybe older at this point and people just keep watching them, and maybe this movie, you know, 5-10 years from now will be one of those movies.
Klaus will come for you.
Thanks for watching, guys. That was our review for a movie called Klaus. For 191 Media, I'm Micah.
And I'm Matt, and if you had just a second, if you could please like, comment, and subscribe, that really helped the channel out.